Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I turned 47 in a year that taught me how quickly a living room can turn into a courtroom, how a birthday can become a siren, and how a house can remember everything you tried to forget. My name is Andrew. I manage operations for a mid-sized printing company in the kind of suburb where cul-de-sacs feed into bigger roads and the high school stadium lights are the brightest thing for miles on a Friday night. I've been married to Carla for 18 years. Our daughter, Grace, is 16, with my stubborn jaw in her mother's eyes, brown, cautious, capable of both shelter and storm. Carla is the person who makes a room look like a magazine spread without trying. She remembers people's coffee orders, sends cards with handwriting so pretty it looks printed, and will tell anyone who asks that family is everything. You should know that about her. You should also know that every true sentence can live next to another one you don't want to say. The week this story started, I was living the way I had learned to live, by lists. Purchase orders, delivery schedules, a post-it that said fix the back gate and had been moving from one edge of the fridge to another for 3 months. Grace had been planning a birthday surprise for her mother, something she'd started whispering about a couple of weeks earlier with a seriousness I hadn't seen since the day she got her driver's permit. She recruited Carla's best friend, Vanessa, because Vanessa knows everyone and everything and has an Instagram that makes our neighborhood look like it was designed by a real estate agency with feelings. "Dad," Grace said, 3 days before the big day, "I want to do it at home. Like, real surprise. I'll text Grandma and Grandpa. I'll text Vanessa. I'll text Aunt Daniela. You just have to get Mom out of the house for an hour, then bring her back at 6. It was a Tuesday. I said yes because saying yes is something I'm trying to do more of with a teenager who's learning her own spine. "We'll tell your mom I made dinner reservations," I said. 6:30. We show up early because I'm bad at timing. Everyone jumps out and yells. We cry. We eat too much cake. Perfect plan. Grace smiled like I'd offered to carry her backpack to homeroom. We had a group thread, surprise for C. It grew fast. Carla's parents, Vanessa, a couple of neighbors we see more in July than January, Grace's 2 closest friends who are either at our house or texting from ours. The plan: everyone arrives at 5:30, lights off, cars down the block, the whole sitcom choreography. Grace made a banner in her bedroom with a glue gun and the kind of glitter that will live in our carpets until we sell the house. She practiced flipping the switch at the exact right time. She laid out paper crowns because she's the kind of kid who believes props matter. I texted Carla Wednesday morning, "Don't make plans Friday. I booked dinner. Wear whatever makes you feel like the person you are in your head." She sent a laugh cry emoji and "You're cute. I'll be home around 5 to change." It landed with the kind of ordinary sweetness I had promised myself I wouldn't take for granted. Friday at 4:38 p.m. Grace texted the group, "We're setting up!" 30 seconds later, Vanessa, "On my way," had to stop for candles. Carla's father sent a thumbs up, he uses them sparingly so they still mean something. Carla's mother sent 3 heart emojis, which for her is the equivalent of a speech. I left the office at 4:45, intent on killing 20 minutes somehow so I didn't arrive before everyone. Traffic laughed at my intentions and let me sit on Oak Ridge for a while between the pharmacy and the donut place where everyone goes after softball. I imagined the house going dark, the hush, Grace's face, the first flash of surprise on Carla's. I imagined the noise of the room when love pretends to be a shout. At 5:12, my phone vibrated. "Grace, Dad?" ? Then, she's not answering my text. Then, "Where are you?" I called. It rang and went to voicemail. Weird, but not alarming. Then Vanessa called me, the sound of panic hiding under her upbeat voice like a seam you can't see until something pulls. "Andrew, where are you?" she asked. 5 minutes out, I said. "Everything okay?" She exhaled. "Just, get here." I turned off Oak Ridge onto our street and counted cars without meaning to, 2 down by the corner that belonged to neighbors. Carla's parents' sedan a half block away, Grace's friends' scooters leaned in the grass. Our driveway was empty, like it was holding a place for a car that should have been there. I parked a few houses down and walked in the side gate like a thief. The kitchen was dim, The smell of frosting and store-bought fried chicken and fresh-cut flowers doing their best to drown out the thing humming under the surface. I stepped into the living room. A dozen faces turned toward me, eyebrows raised, foreheads furrowed, party hats in hands, a banner half-taped across the mantel that read "Happy Birth" in glitter letters because there hadn't been time to finish. Grace stood in the bay window with a roll of tape and a look that had crossed into a new country in the last minute. Vanessa held a cake box like a shield. Carla's parents stood by the dining room entryway, her father steady, her mother a bottle of champagne waiting for permission to scream. "What's happening?" I asked, my whisper louder than I intended. Grace didn't whisper. "Mom just pulled up," she said. "With someone." There was a universe in those 3 words. The room moved like slow syrup. People ducked behind furniture that suddenly didn't feel like furniture. I looked at Vanessa, a reflex I wish I could call noble. She shook her head once, a tiny motion I read as both I didn't know and also I did, and I helped. Panic thrummed through me like a chord I learned in high school and hoped I'd never play again. The garage door beeped. The door from the garage into the mudroom clicked. Voices, too, shoes on tile. Carla's laugh, her real one, low and bright and unguarded, landed in our home and turned the air into something else. Grace reached for the light switch out of habit, then jerked her hand back like it had burned her. Carla walked into the kitchen, still laughing, saying, "Okay, but if we bail now we can." She saw the banner, the shapes of people, the outlines of family. The sentence snapped like a rubber band in her mouth. She froze. The man with her, mid-40s, dressed like the kind of hiking catalog that sells you a version of yourself, stopped 2 steps behind and to the side, the posture of someone who just realized the party was not for him. Silence took the room and set it on the coffee table. Grace spoke first. It didn't sound like a shout. It sounded like a girl reaching for a ladder and finding it missing. "We wanted to surprise you," she said, her voice trembling into clarity. "We wanted to say happy birthday." She swallowed. "We wanted cake." She took a breath that made her older. "We got this." Carla put a hand out, a gesture that has soothed many things in this house, the cat stuck under a bed, a pot about to boil over, me. It didn't soothe the room. "Everyone," she started, then stopped. She looked at me with a plea no one else could translate. I had a sudden urge to walk to her, wrap an arm around her, pulled her out of the frame into a hallway where we could talk like the floor belonged to us. I stayed where I was. Vanessa, to her credit or her ruin, spoke next. "Carla," she said. Her voice broke on the name. "I thought you..." She stopped, swallowed. She looked small, like a paper boat on bad water. The man, this stranger in our kitchen, shifted back half a step. He tried for discretion and landed on disappearing. "I should go," he said quietly. Carla nodded without moving her eyes from mine. "Yes," she whispered. Yes. Please." He slipped past the refrigerator like a shadow, learned manners, out through the mudroom, the garage door humming its exit music. The sound of the garage door closing thudded through the house like a punctuation mark we didn't vote for. Carla's mother found her voice. It arrived wrapped in linen. "We do not have to do this," she said, hands up as if she could push the whole scene back into the hall closet. "This is a birthday. We will talk later." Carla's father set his jaw in a way I'd only seen twice before, in a hospital waiting room and at his mother's funeral. He stepped 1 foot forward, not toward his daughter, not toward me, but toward the truth, like a man who knows where he stands even if the ground disagrees. "We will talk now," he said softly. He looked at me and nodded once. He looked at Grace and his face broke a little and then steadied. "We will not ask her to be brave by herself." Grace's friends melted into the dining room doorway. One of them, Emma, put a hand on Grace's shoulder and left it there like a little lighthouse. Vanessa set the cake on the counter carefully and stepped back, arms wrapped around herself the way you do when you wish your body could be smaller. Carla looked at Vanessa as if seeing her newly. A flicker crossed her face, gratitude, betrayal, exhaustion, then she dropped her eyes. "Nessa," she said, voice nearly gone. She didn't finish. Vanessa exhaled. "I covered," she said, simple and raw. I thought I was protecting you from a blow that would just come later. I was wrong. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Grace's voice rose again, this time clear, the sound of a glass set down too hard on a counter. We wanted to celebrate you, she said, and that you held 1,000 Tuesdays and every bedtime story and the way Carla used to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear when she listened to Grace read. We wanted to celebrate you, she repeated. And we saw this. She didn't cry. That would have been easier. She did something worse, she squared her shoulders like someone who had just realized the grown-ups were not going to save her. I found my voice where it had fallen. Everyone, I said, not loud. Let's sit. It was an absurd sentence in a room that had just fallen off the map, but chairs give people something to do with their knees when the rest of them doesn't know how to behave. We didn't sit. We hovered into places that looked like sitting. Carla moved 2 steps into the room, stopped, put a hand on the back of a dining chair like a person boarding a boat. I am sorry, she said, and it didn't sound like a lawyer or a child, it sounded like someone who had been practicing a line in the mirror and finally got the tone right. I am sorry. Her mother stepped toward her, relief breaking across her face like weather. You don't have to. Mom, Carla said, and it was the kind of soft warning daughters learn at 12 and carry forever. Please don't. She looked at me. It wasn't nothing, she said. It wasn't everything. It was stupid and greedy and I told myself stories about being invisible and then I did the loudest thing I could think of. It doesn't make sense. It also makes too much. She glanced at Grace. I am so sorry. Carla's father turned to me like a man choosing which pillar to hold while the roof shakes. Andrew, he said. I am sorry. He put a hand on my shoulder. It was brief and steady, the shake of a hand that knew me before this and planned to know me after. Her mother stiffened into outrage because some people wear righteousness when fear won't zip up. How dare you bring him into our home, she said to Carla, and it took me a second to realize she meant me, not the man who had walked out. The grammar of her anger had gotten away from her. She corrected mid-breath, how dare he, then stopped, because there wasn't a he to aim at anymore. She turned to Vanessa and found a target. And you, she said. You helped this. You call yourself her friend. Vanessa took the hit. Yes, she said. I did. She looked at Grace. I am sorry. Grace flinched. You helped? She asked, the word helped turning into hurt between her teeth. Vanessa nodded, a small, defeated motion. I thought I was holding the door against a storm, she said. I was letting it in. The room made a sound that wasn't sound, just breath and grief and the human instinct to pick up a broom you can't lift. I walked to Grace and put my hand on her back because I didn't know what else to do that wouldn't be a lie. We're leaving, I said quietly. Not a threat. A sentence. You and me. Carla's eyes widened, not with surprise but with something flatter, older, recognition. Please, she said to Grace. It wasn't a command. It was a mother asking her daughter for a minute in a house with no minutes left. Grace's jaw tightened. I can't, she said. Then louder, I can't. She took my hand like she had when she was 5 and we crossed parking lots together. We walked to the door. Carla's father moved aside. He touched Grace's arm as she passed and said, I love you, and she nodded without looking up, the motion of someone saving a sentence to open later. Carla's mother started to speak, stopped, put a hand to her chest, then covered her mouth as if she could keep her words in, as if that would turn back a clock. We left. The evening air felt indecently normal. The neighbor's sprinkler clicked on. Somewhere down the block someone was grilling, and the smell of charcoal hit me like a memory from a life we were still technically in. Grace and I got into my truck without talking. We drove. We didn't pick a place. We found one, an empty Target parking lot at the edge of town where teenagers learn to drive and people go when they need fluorescent lighting to make a decision. We sat. I waited. Parents talk too soon. It's our worst habit. Grace spoke first. Was I stupid? She asked. For thinking she didn't finish. No, I said. You were kind. She blinked hard but didn't let the water fall. I hate being kind, she said. I know, I said. Me too. We went to a diner because there are only so many places you can go after your living room stops being a living room, and neither of us wanted to call attention to ourselves. Grace ordered pancakes at 6:30 in the evening because you can in America, and I drank coffee and looked out the window at the kind of twilight that makes even strip malls look like paintings. "What happens now?" she asked, stabbing a pancake without malice. "We breathe," I said. "We sleep at Grandma and Grandpa's tonight if you want. We don't make big decisions in parking lots or diners." She nodded like a judge who appreciates procedure. "Are you mad at me for yelling?" she asked. "I'm proud of you for telling the truth," I said. "I'm sorry we made you." We slept in the guest room at my sister's, which smelled like cedar and old books. Grace texted her mother once, "I'm safe with Dad." Carla wrote back, "Thank you. I love you." Grace didn't reply. She put her phone face down on the nightstand like a tiny door. The next morning, I went back to the house to get clothes. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that tells you everyone has run out of sentences for the day. Carla was at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen in the face she uses when the thing in front of her needs a list. She looked up. Neither of us moved. "We have to tell her grandparents where we are tonight," I said. "So they don't come over with muffins." She gave a small, broken laugh. "My mother is baking already," she said. "It's her sacrament." "Your dad?" I asked. She nodded. "He said he's with you. Whatever that means." She looked at the legal pad as if the pen might help her write a timeline where we didn't end up here. "I made an appointment with a counselor," she said. "For me. For us, if you want." I pulled out a chair and sat because leaving would have felt like a kind of lying too. "Grace is coming with me," I said. "Tonight, tomorrow. As long as she wants." "Lily," I stopped. Wrong story, wrong family, I was tired and mixing names. "Emma, no." I shook my head and exhaled. "Grace." "Of course," Carla said. "I want her safe." She looked up at me with a kind of ferocity I recognized. "I want her to forgive me someday," she said. "But not now. Not if now costs her more truth." We began the slow work then, calls, texts, cancellations. Carla called Vanessa and apologized and then didn't argue when Vanessa apologized back. Carla called her mother and told her that protecting her wasn't helping. Her mother cried in neat lines. Her father came by with a toolbox and fixed the back gate that had been on my post-it, his language of love. He told me a story about a mistake he made at 23 that taught him how to speak softer. He told me he was on our side, ours, plural, and I believed him. Grace stayed quiet for 2 days and then asked if she could see her mother. "I want to say things without everyone staring," she said. She did. They sat in the living room without glitter and said sentences I will never know. I think that's right. Parents deserve privacy when they tell the truth to their children and accept the mirror back. Grace came home and went straight to her room and came out later with red eyes and asked if we could get tacos. We did. It was the most expensive $11 I have ever spent, and worth twice that, which I know is not how math works. Church people found out because secrets are porous and suburbs are funnels. The good ones texted without asking for details. The less good ones added details the story hadn't turned. I learned to say, "We're working on it," and let that be the only sentence I could live with. Carla and I sat in a counselor's office with a woman whose cardigan looked like it had heard everything and still believed in people. We took turns. She said lonely and invisible and foolish and then said cruel and wrong before anyone else could. I said tired and proud and devastated and then said not surprised in a way that surprised me. The counselor said, "Order matters, truth, then kindness," and I wrote it down on a sticky note because I am a man who trusts office supplies. We made rules. No more secrets. No more work emergencies that are really mirrors. Grace doesn't carry the family's lies like luggage. Vanessa doesn't cover for anyone again even if they beg. Carla sleeps in the guest room until the house knows our names again. We don't tell the story to get sympathy. We tell it to keep our footing. A week later, on a Tuesday that felt like a different planet, Grace asked if we could finish the banner we never hung. "Not for a birthday," she said. "For the fridge." We spread out the glitter and the glue and the letters that had been half-taped. We spelled out 3 words in uneven sparkle: tell the truth. We put it on the fridge where the post-its live. Carla stood in the doorway and looked at it and nodded like a woman in a museum who has found herself in a painting she never sat for. We are not fine. We are not ruined. We are moving like people on ice, small steps, hands out, a little ridiculous, very alive. Some nights Grace eats dinner with me and makes fun of a show where strangers buy houses they can't afford. Some nights she eats with Carla and the two of them cry at different speeds. Some nights we eat together and talk about algebra like it's new. Carla's mother sends texts that say, "Family is family," and I agree in the vaguest possible way. Carla's father stops by on Sundays and pretends to need my drill. Vanessa checks in with Grace once a week through me, as if we're all learning to pass notes legally. The man from the kitchen does not reappear. If he does, he won't come through the garage. On the day of Carla's actual birthday, Grace and I drove to the lake at the edge of town and ate cupcakes from a grocery store box because that's what we had. We lit a candle. The wind blew it out. We laughed. Grace looked at me and said, "Do you think we'll ever have a normal birthday again?" And I said, "Probably not," and she laughed harder, the laugh of a kid who understands that normal is just a story your calendar tells you. When we got home, Carla was on the porch with a paper crown Grace had left on the table. She held it in her hands like a fragile thing that could still be set on a head. She looked at us, then at the door, then at the banner on the fridge. "Can we try cake?" she asked. Grace considered, then nodded once. "We can try," she said. "Trying is not forgiving." She looked at me to see if I'd object. I didn't. We went inside. We cut small pieces. We ate standing up like people who don't trust chairs yet. Afterward, I took the trash out and stood in the driveway and listened to the neighborhood do its evening routine: dogs, sprinklers, a basketball thumping somewhere. The porch light clicked on. Through the kitchen window, I could see the glitter banner, crooked and perfect. Grace walked by and tapped it with a finger the way you tap a sign for luck. Carla followed, glanced at it, and didn't look away. I don't know our ending. I know our middle. It looks like this: a house where surprise parties started early and turned into something else, a daughter whose voice found the pitch the room needed, a friend who learned what covering costs, grandparents who picked sides and then tried again, and 2 adults who are learning to say the hard thing first and to let the kind thing follow. If there is a miracle here, it is small and daily: lights on, doors open, and a banner on a fridge that tells the truth before we forget how. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.